Hey guys, just doing a little technicality here. Let's see. Technical stuff. I remember in the days when we didn't have technology, but I tell you what, okay, y'all, excuse me. But even when we have technology, it's still a little challenge. Let me see here. So I wanted to see, sorry guys, I'm just trying to see if I can figure out how to live stream on YouTube. Go figure. I think, okay, let's make sure. Let's see. I think I got it. This is my testing day, you guys. But at the same time, I'm going to give some value to you. For those that have not been doing this for a while, let's see what happens. I actually don't know how I would check YouTube. Let's see. There we go. Oh, I would check YouTube. Okay, let's see if this worked. Interesting. Okay. We're gonna give it a try. Oh well, this is what happens when you try it. And you guys, if you're a nonprofit organization, been around, you're doing training, and a lot of during COVID, a lot of people were telling me, well, I had to kind of close my nonprofit. I couldn't do anything because we couldn't do anything in person. But there's so many benefits to having a nonprofit as far as the tools to be able to reach the people and the population that you serve. So even if you didn't do anything but just classes or check-ins or what have you, you could have pivoted for those that didn't during that time that we were in-house. Now, even with schools, everybody's used to, we're kind of burnt out on this virtual, but it's still the best way to get to the most amount of people, right? Without having to travel different places, different times, and what have you. So it works, and we should be using it. So that's what I'm doing as well. And we're going to move right on into it. Like I said, forgive me because I think I'm technology savvy, but some things are still kind of new to me because I don't use it often. So let's try to get in here. I'm going to pull up. We're going to go straight into it. All right, let's share my screen and nobody laugh. I have too many windows I already know. Oh well. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And using my handy dandy Canva, and that's another tool that is actually free for nonprofits. So let's get right on into it. This particular webinar, Zoom, whatever you want to call it, presentation is about starting out with a strong nonprofit in 2026. And for those that do know me, you've heard me over and over and over and over again talk about being compliant. Yes, we care about your passion. Yes, we want you to help people. But if you want to go that step up and get your 501c3 and become a official certified nonprofit organization, and we're going to get into some of the steps and what is required briefly because I'm going to assume that most already have their nonprofit. But when you're not getting grant funding and you have tried to get grant funding or you don't know how to get just the people to buy into your organization, excuse me, guys, sometimes it's simple as the fact that your organization is not compliant, that you don't have the things on purpose, the things that are required. And then there's some other items that I'll go over that kind of put you a step ahead, but also make you open to being able to do business with the government as well. So I always say, don't believe the hype. Yes, funding is cut, but for every time funding is cut in one area, sometimes you have to just be creative and there's other areas that you still can get that funding. Okay. So this is what we're talking about. I want to make sure that we're not out here just saying, I have a nonprofit. And then when people like myself, they call me Miss Kathy, go out there and look, and I see that one, maybe you only have the IRS, and then I don't see the state, or I see the state, but things aren't matching. I don't know what your address is. Well, guess what? That will keep you from getting funded. Okay, so my ultimate goal for this particular presentation is just to teach you how to structure your nonprofit to be ready for funding in 2026 is today as of today. Today is the 28th. So we have what? 9:30. It's so bad. 31. There's a lot going on. We have 4 days. We will be into 2026. I don't know about you all, but these days are going so freaking fast. Before I jump into it, for those that don't know me, I'm called because I have this. So what we're doing, this is for my community, my school community, but I'm also streaming this on YouTube. I want to explain that I have been in nonprofit as far as starting my own from the like 1990s, so like 1991, and then I did another, which was a group home, and then I did another one around 1995 or so, and that was called Women's Awareness and Empowerment Organization, all based on my life, what I enjoyed doing. I've been a nurse since that time as well, and mental health was my area that I enjoyed. So that's why I started the group home and going from for profit to nonprofit. And then along the way, I have just helped other people with their nonprofits, whether that be filing services, helping them with grant funding. A lot of times, if you provide the resources, that's where my company is A&E Coaching Group, and that's where Women's Awareness and Empowerment Organization come from. If you are aware of your resources, majority of us, you can empower yourself. And a lot of times we just need to be guided where the resources are. I don't believe they don't exist. I think sometimes we just don't know where they are. Even as simple as going in the library and not realizing that almost all the information, even that I will provide today, has always been in the library, right? But you actually can go to the IRS and see a lot of this information as well. So what you pay people like me, for example, is to do that faster. So you can go out there and do other parts of building that nonprofit organization. I think that's enough. No, who cares about the personal, yeah, children, grandchildren, all that fun stuff, blah, blah, blah. Life. Okay, so the big question, this is something I want you to, those who have started a nonprofit organization, what's your biggest challenge with getting nonprofit funding? Okay, I'll wait. If anybody wants to share, I pull up my, should have pulled up my, yeah, should have actually pulled up my iPad, but I'm going to look out of the chat as well on YouTube. But I'm just curious. All right, you guys. I'm just waiting. So the question is, what is your biggest challenge with getting nonprofit funding? And I really want you to think about this because this is what I always hear. I need money. I need money. A lot of times you don't even need funding like you think you do. And for those of us in the skill community, that's the purpose of showing you creative ways or prompting your mindset to really change and focus and be creative with providing for people. There's an old adage, whether you're a Christian or doesn't matter religion, but we've all heard it. You can feed someone, right? And you help them for a day. In the case of life, you can give them, even when you are feeding them per se, or giving them clothes, that's what you're doing. But there's usually a deeper problem. So if I teach them how to get all those basics, think about the foundation of life and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. One of those things should kind of click with you. Excuse me, you guys. Kind of busy out there. But when you show someone how to do that, then they can do that for a lifetime, right? And that's what they say. So you teach a man to fish, fish for it. I mean, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for the day. You teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. That is fact. And it also works. Now, I'm not saying don't start your nonprofit, but keep in mind, if you just want to do the giveaways, stay there and just the giveaways. But don't expect grants to pay for giveaways, right? But you can collaborate with other organizations and be able to get other resources and other actively making that impact, if that makes sense. Okay. So I hope you, for those of you who responded on YouTube, I do want to know in your school, in the school community, please let me know as well. Okay. We're going to move on. So the number one reason nonprofits struggle to get grant. This is a misconception. I just talked about this. Starting a nonprofit means funders will throw money at me. That's what a lot of people will start those nonprofits thinking, I can go get some money. I can go get some money. Unfortunately, that should not be the first thought. Technically, and I want to put this on the side here, side note, I've always said, and I continue to believe, that you really should not start a nonprofit unless you already have money and or influence. That's how it started back in the day. Nonprofits are not made for you to make money from. That's your business. Now, nonprofits can make money, such as universities, schools, daycares, anything that you think of that charges, but they're still a nonprofit. I had a group home. I transitioned from for profit to nonprofit, right? But all that means is what you do at the end of the year. The money goes back into the organization. And what do I always say, class? You do not own a nonprofit organization. Okay? So money being thrown at you, the reality is grant funders only give to nonprofits that are strategically positioned, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. So as we go along, then you'll ask yourself, and hopefully we'll write down if there's anything you think you're missing that you'll work on that before January 1st, but no later than January the 31st. Put a deadline on it, okay? All right, because people need you. So I call it a framework. You know, that's the popular thing to call everything a framework to grant readiness, right? It's a 5 step. The number one is mission clarity and compliance. They beat that in with the horse, right? A clear purpose, make it simple. Your vision statement, your mission statement pretty much should be one sentence. Your mission statement no more than two, and make it clear. You can't take care of everybody, everything, especially starting out. You're a small nonprofit. If you just started in the last 3 to even, we'll say within this year to 5 years, more than likely, you're still considered small bylaws. That's important. If you have gone through the process of getting your 501c3, you did it yourself, someone else did it, and you do not have bylaws, please stop and make sure you have your bylaws. And then a legally structured nonprofit. And I'm going to have a checklist that I'll go over too. So you'll know, but this is not the deep dive today. This is kind of like just a checklist to say you have it. If you don't have it, and you're not in our school community, you need to come on in there, right? If you do, if you are in our school community, please, please, please go through our grant writing course. It's for free. Go through the first one that says how to start a nonprofit the right way. Again, that checklist is everywhere throughout school where you will see what you need for your nonprofit to be considered compliant. All right. And then the 501c3 status is so important. In the process, you can have a fiscal sponsorship. But I won't touch on that fiscal sponsorship. Get that out of your head. If you have had a fiscal sponsor, go ahead and get your 501c3. That is actually the reason. A lot of times it's either because you're collaborating, okay? But you still should have your 501c3 status. Please understand you are not considered a nonprofit tax exempt organization unless you have gone through the IRS. The state is just the process. So you need to have both and we'll get into a little bit of that as far as what some states require. There's one extra step for other states. Number two, you must have strong leadership and governance. Actually, you should have that leadership before you even get the 501c3 because it's really about the impact. It's about doing the work, right? And changing people, transitioning them, helping them, giving them what they need, but also hopefully you have some component of motivating, mental health. All those things could be just a collaborative effort in the community, even if you only have a few people to do this. But for the purpose of being grant ready, you must have an active board members. I try my best not to go too deep. You need to have board members, okay? I'm going to let you know. President, vice president, secretary, treasurer. Okay. One person can have two positions. Back in the day, we would let the secretary and the treasurer have one position. I think I said it backwards. They can have two positions, but one person, right? The president can't be the vice president and vice versa. And people will ask me why. If I like you, I'm sarcastic and I'll give you a sarcastic reason. So I'm going to pretend like I like you all. And I'm going to say, duh, or I say it like I know you all. I'm going to say, duh, that only makes sense. Because if you the president and you just die or get sick or whatever happens, can you come around and be vice president? No. So that's why you have to have one person for each of those positions. You always have to have a person right now is leaving me as far as what that is called, but you need to have that plan to make sure that the organization goes on and on and on beyond what anything else could happen, right? And then let's get into number three. Fundable programs and measurable impact. Believe it or not, once again, like I said, you can be a giveaway type of a organization. But if you don't have any programs, some people call them projects, with measurable impact, meaning that you're taking them from point A to point B. Like I said, it's not enough to give someone food, but if you teach them how, that might mean job readiness. That might mean how to get into housing. That might mean just how to get into trade school or college or whatever that is. But the program, right, should be clear. It could be a short amount of time. It could be a year, what have you. You decide all that. But there should be some way that you can measure that they have transitioned. That's why it's so important to have those and they will ask for those tools even when your funding sources will ask for those. They're in grant applications. They will ask for how do you measure that the person is doing well? Okay. And it's not getting in people's business once they sign up with your organization for a particular program. It is your duty and definitely to check in because, first of all, just as a human being, check in with people. Find out where they are. They fall off, they come back. Document that. Find out why and get your statistics on whether your program is working or not. Okay? So number 4 is financial management and budgeting. I don't care if you just started. We need to make sure we have set up bookkeeping. We need to set up transparency. The first way, once again, throughout this, I'm giving tools. For nonprofits, you can use QuickBooks. I'm going to just put it out there. QuickBooks, and there's something called Wave Apps. Wave Apps is pretty much free. They make their money if you use the invoices and things like that. You can or cannot, whatever, it does not matter. But you need to have some kind of system, digital system in place. You don't have to give your CPA your login. You don't have to give a bookkeeper your login. And by the way, you may not want your treasurer to be a CPA or an accountant because if you start to make more money and you have to get an independent audit, you want that to be done by a CPA. In that case, it has to be independent. It can't be someone who works in your organization or on the board. That's considered unethical. I know people say, well, I didn't make any money. I didn't do that. Doesn't matter. Connect it, your bank account must have a bank account, and it's ideal to have a brick and mortar bank account. If they charge $10 a month, add up 10 times 12, 120, and go grab that as a donation, right? You're good for the year. That's part of your budget. Don't worry about that. But have a brick and mortar, connect that to your accounting software. That's all I'm going to say today because I could have a whole lot more to say. We're going to keep it moving. And then I talked about the budget. And these are things that, again, when you contract myself, those are the things that ongoing, what I found, I'm going to put this out there. Everybody wants grant writers, but depending upon what kind of grant writer or how extensive, some people will just do your application. But if grant writer has not communicated with you on compliance and what's required before they submit, then you're just actually doing the application and writing it in vain. The goal is to actually be qualified to get the funding, and hopefully either you get it or if they tell you no, it's only because they ran out of money, not because your proposal wasn't good enough or your organization wasn't ready. So we want to make sure we have a budget in place. A budget doesn't mean you already existed. It can be a projected budget. All right. So number 5, this is the 5-step framework. So this is the last one, a compelling grant proposal and funder research. So you want a strong case for support and strategic funder alignment. What this means, we don't want all the fluff. We want a basic proposal. If you do nothing but, excuse me, a mentoring program for children, we'll say maybe you have after school. I don't know. We know that's going to be from maybe 3 to 7 or 3 to 6:30, whatever. That's what it is. And when you describe your operating day to day, that's all it is. No extra fluff needed. If you want to have other people coming in, like I said mentorship first. You might want to assign peer-to-peer mentoring. That means the kids who are excelling better maybe mentor the ones who are not, right? It can be that simple. That's all you need to do, not all that extra that we want to put in our proposals. Time out for that. Nobody wants to read, not even the people who are approving the money. Okay. And then the funder alignment. This is so important. Let me give an example. Walmart grant is still open, I think until the first, so 3 more days. And in my group, I actually, and those who are watching me from the group know that I shared about Walmart. Not just once, not just twice, but at least 3 to 4 times because that's how many times it comes out per year. Now, you don't want to chase grants like that if there's no alignment. And how do you know alignment? Again, we're not going to go deep, but when you look at the eligibility and what their focus was, preferably for that year, because sometimes things happen. Maybe they lean more to recidivism type programs, then they might lead more to food programs, it might lead more to children, youth, but you have to read that for yourself because it does fluctuate with most grant funders. But stick with your mission, research. If there's something that does not make you eligible, don't apply for it if it's just totally not aligned with what you do. Go to the next. There's millions and millions and millions of dollars out there. So there's no reason to get stuck on just one or two funders. Again, I could go on and on. All right. So common mistakes that keep you stuck. We talked about having systems, and that equals no funding. That's why I set the bank account because when they want to know your financials, you push a button and you have your financials, right? And then they don't have to worry about when that audit comes, it's easier to get a accountant or CPA because all they have to do is go through the systems. You haven't broken that system and touched it. And there's other things that I talk about and will continue to talk about, even in our school community, as far as fundraising and things like that. But all of those things are done with systems, making sure even with your board members, you use systems. I don't care if you use it, Google Workspace is so important. So everybody sees the same thing, but you also are able to block out or only keep the ones that need to see, and those that don't need to, or maybe they're only working for on a specific project. Systems help you get volunteers. There's so many things that you can do with having systems in your organization, and it does not work you so hard. But applying for the wrong grants and even keeping up with grants, you need to have systems to do that as well. But applying for the wrong grants, we just talked about that. That's really critical. Like, why apply? If you have a program for children and there's something for incarcerated men, why apply for it? Unless you can twist that around somehow, but most of the time, if that's who they're helping, that's who they're helping. Now, you can say children of incarcerated family members or men or fathers or however you want to say it. That might be, but you want to read and make sure it's not a far reach. Not having required documents ready, and that's what we're about to go over right now. Okay, so the overview. Let's just kind of go down the line. Again, this is not the deep dive. Making sure your EIN number, that seems so simple. But I can tell you how many over the years that have provided EIN and I'm wondering why grants, I can't pull them up. You put that EIN number in and nothing comes out. Like it should match. They should be a nonprofit. But if you've gone for a for-profit to a nonprofit, make sure you have done the appropriate filings so that for-profit shows up as a nonprofit, okay? Because it's a different system to be to file every year. Make sure your state filing is up to date. Make sure your state filing, everything that you put on there matches your EIN. Actually, when you file annually, everything should change for the EIN number. Determination letter from the IRS. Thank goodness now you can see it online. Before it would just tell you, active or what have you. For everybody, please understand, I don't care if you make $1 or you make 1 million. You have to file. Or you make zero and you make 1 million. You have to file this 990 every single year. After 3 years, they automatically revoke it. It does not matter if you have not gotten the letter or not. If you haven't gotten the letter, it's probably because you didn't update your address, right? I didn't even put that on here, but you really should have an address, a business type address. You really, really, really should. The board of directors identified and filed. So, and it's good if you have resumes. Actually, you should request that before actually agreeing to have them on your board, even if it's simple, just having a bio, resume, or something. And then state charitable solicitation registration is up to date. I'm in Tennessee, and we do require a state charitable solicitations registration before soliciting, even after you've gotten the determination letter. As a matter of fact, you can't even file that, or you should not file that until you receive the determination letter. If you don't know what I mean and you're in school community, that means you haven't gone through my videos. If you do not know and you have a nonprofit organization, please get in our school community. It is free. Okay. All right. I can't say no more about that. But again, everything in compliance is really about, the lawsuits or the fraudulent activity and state charitable solicitations were put in place because people was raising money on behalf of organizations that they weren't part of. We see it all the time, right? People will do GoFundMe's and have not gotten it approved by the families. Well, with a nonprofit organization, you have some things in place to be able to check to make sure it's a credible organization and that the person who is taking up funds, it really should never go in their hand. It should go directly to that nonprofit organization. All right, so continue. You say, "Ooh, that's a lot of stuff." It's really not. It's really not. Once it's in place, it's there, it's done, and you're just gonna update and file. Technically, let's go back real quick. The things you have to do every year are gonna be your state, the IRS 990s, and then you might have to do the charitable solicitation. Yep, those are three things that you have to do every single year. That's it. And that's with the board, okay? Let your treasurer and your secretary get that together, and then you all have a board meeting annually to say, this was done, this was done, this was done. Make sure your board members are up to date as far as the names, everything matching, done. Okay. Accounting software chosen and linked to a bank account. Talked about that. The DMB number. All right. This is another level. This, you guys, is not compliance, but it's helpful because you never know all the disasters that are going on, all the things that are going on. Your local government or your state or federal, depends on what your organization qualifies to be able to do. And that's about capacity. You want to be ready to be able to receive money. Like people say, how can I sign up with FEMA? FEMA doesn't give the money, but you can register with FEMA. And a lot of times the money that is given out there through the government, you'll see it. That next one is SAM registration, which is Systems for Award Management. So you want to make sure you do your DMB number. It can be for the purpose of credit, but make sure you're not checking that on the DMB application because those people will call you. The representatives will hound you. Do it for government procurement contract, okay? File as a nonprofit organization. Remember, you do not own it, so do not put anywhere on here minority owned or anything like that. It is not owned. SAM registration, same thing. Do not put minority. Do not apply for those categories, woman owned, none of that because you do not own it. And then you want to go make sure you're registered with grants.gov. They have revised their platform. So I can't say it's easier, but once you read about it, it is easier. It's easier to collaborate. So if you have a grant writer working with you, you have people on your board or some people you have contracted or some volunteers that are working with you, everybody can have their own login and then making sure that we're working together on a grant. So important, so important. Funding, like I said, we say that money the money is low or we run out or cut. Yeah, they cut a lot out, but it's up to us to be creative in finding other ways to get funding. But remember, the government is us. I remember we the people, we the people, we the people. The government, that's what we learned first through third grade, right? That's our tax dollars. That's money we put out there. Technically, the government does not make revenue. It's the money that we have put in, meaning they don't sell anything. Everything from the government is provided by a small or a large business, but by a business. Case in point, when you file for your state filing or for um, we'll say state filing, and it asks for that fee, $2, $3, $5, whatever it is. Maybe you paid $100 to your state, but there's a fee. The fee is for the merchant services that's being provided, right? The other fee helps the people who work there get a salary to be able to provide the services because you can call at any time that they're open, right? And get help. Last year's financial statement. So if you're just started this year, you won't have it. If you started the year before, click the button, you got your financial statement. If you made no revenue, you still should have something that shows in kind. In kind donations means even you yourself work for free or work for a lesser amount than what the full payment would be. And we're not going to go deep, but there's ways that you want to include that to make sure that You don't just wait till you get a grant and say, "Oh, I'm going to pay myself 100,000 a year." No, no, no. Okay, we're going to stop there because I could go deep on that one. Key personnel, key staff personnel resumes and or job descriptions. Okay. Notice I said, let's clear up what is key staff personnel. In the beginning, you may have yourself as the president, founder, and you're going to work in a position as executive director, CEO, or what have you. Okay. You might have an administrative assistant. Maybe your secretary is going to work in that capacity. So the payment doesn't go as president or secretary, it goes as executive director, whatever's usual and customary for your area, and then for administrative assistant. And that's based on the number of hours. So if you have an after school program, there is no reason to pay someone 40 hours a week. First of all, school is in session majority of the workday. You only have children maybe 3 to 4 hours, and maybe you're going to pay somebody 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. Add up those hours and figure it out. That's what the pay is. Usual and customary, you can go to Indeed and find out what a person would get paid in your area for that position. Okay? So that means, even your mentors, they can be free. They can be volunteers. You can give stipends if you so choose. But now, the other part of that, I said, and or job descriptions. When you're going for funding, you may not want to put the person only. If you don't have a person in place and you have a position, make sure you're putting that position down there. What can happen? Quick story, long story short, real short. If you name a person, say you name a person for executive assistant, administrative assistant, and they quit on you, something happens midway of your grant, maybe after the first year, but the first 6 months, and then they quit. You want to make sure your funding is for that position. So when they're gone, you still can continue, hire someone else and be able to use that funding. But if you say that that funding is for that person, then a lot of times when it comes time for you to audit, you're submitting your report of who you paid. If it's not that person, then you can't spend that money that way, right? Everything has to be accounted. So the way you get around that is you talk about the job position and give the description. And then the organization's website, I put that down there. There's so many creative ways to do that. You can use services like MailChimp, ConvertKit. There's a lot of HubSpot, and you can create landing pages that will create like a website. You just need to be visible. Visibility shows credibility in the eyes of the masses. Let's put it that way. So if you say I have this nonprofit and I go and I Google your nonprofit and I don't see anything but maybe the IRS shows up, that's it. But I don't see anything social media, I don't see website, I don't see any of that stuff, that's a problem. And you do not have to pay all this massive amount of money for a website. You do not. Yeah, I could go deep again because that's an area that we're not utilizing our local universities or our high school students or our children or other people's children or so much talent out there or Fiverr, maybe pay $100 or something. But you don't need a fancy website. You just need a presence. And it does need to look, but some of you, I need you to not look a certain way. I'm trying to say this the right way without being stereotypical, stereotyping people. But I should look at your website as being global. That's all I'm gonna say right there. All right. And so for my YouTubers that are not in our community, in our school community, you can actually get what I call a 5-step guide to getting a nonprofit grant and the ultimate roadmap to grant ready in 30 days, which is free. For those of you in the school community, you can do this as well by going to iamgrantready.com. But if you're already in a school community, those things are already there. If you go through the grant writing training and a lot of other things, it's saying the same thing over and over and over again. And right now, I'm going to reopen on a level of, we have 2 levels. There's one where I hate saying grant writer, but that's part of the services that I provide. It's more so really being that coach, consultant, grant writer, and going with you through the journey. That's one program. The other one within the community, which I will be reopening soon, is to identify grants specific to your organization, right? Up to 3 grants per month. And then we have at least 2 meetings or cohorts where I do provide some type of training, but then another where we just do like a work session Q&A type thing. And that might be even more often than twice a month for that. And so that's the most I think I can provide without feeling guilty about not giving enough. Everything in the school else in the school community is free. And then we'll be by the end of this week, by January 1st, we will have the fundraising course, which is a nominal fee as well. So to get the free fast track, like I say, grant ready, you go to iamgrantready.com, and that will get you in there. All right.